Patterns unraveled, the rhythmic click of Farha Noor's wooden loom filled the sunlit corner of the apartment she shared with Zaid Khalil. Her fingers, calloused yet precise, guided threads of indigo and gold through the warp and weft, creating patterns that seemed to dance in the afternoon light. At 32, Farha possessed a gift that had been passed down through generations of women in her family, the ability to tell stories through textile. "I need something special for the Vanguard showcase," Zaid said, leaning against the doorframe of her workspace. Tall and lean, with a carefully trimmed beard, his presence commanded attention in any room. "Something that will make Nisreen Mystery remember my name." Farha smiled without looking up from her work. "The textile magnate from Mumbai? That's a big opportunity." "It could change everything for us," Zaid replied, crossing the room to place, his hands on her shoulders. "For Khalil Designs." What he meant was for him. Farha had learned the subtle difference in their 5 years together, while her name appeared nowhere on the brand. Her patterns and techniques were woven into every successful piece he'd ever created. Fashion critics often commented on the unexpected authenticity in Zaid's work, never knowing those elements came from Farha's heritage and vision. "I've been experimenting with a fusion technique," she said, reaching for her journal. "Traditional Kashmiri embroidery with contemporary geometric structures." "Look," Zaid's eyes widened as she showed him. "The sketches. This is exactly what I need. Can you have a sample ready by Thursday?" Farha nodded, already calculating the hours she would need to steal from sleep. Her day job as a textile conservator at the museum paid their rent, while Zaid pursued his dreams. She didn't mind. She believed in him, in them, in the promise that someday her contributions would be acknowledged. That evening, as Farha worked late into the night, her phone buzzed with a text from her cousin Tara. "Saw your partner at the Ivory Lounge tonight. Quite cozy with some redhead, thought you should know." The needle pricked Farha's finger, a drop of blood staining the pristine fabric. She stared at it, watching as the crimson spread through the fibers. It wasn't the first such message she'd received. For months, rumors had circulated about Zaid and Daria Varma, a socialite whose family owned half the luxury boutiques in the city. "Just business," Zaid had explained the first time. "The Varmas can open doors for us." Farha had believed him then. She wondered when exactly she had stopped. 3 days later. The sample was a completed jacket with intricate hand-embroidered panels that took her 27 hours to create. Zaid was ecstatic. "This is brilliant, Farha. Absolute genius," he said, kissing her forehead. "I'm meeting with some investors tonight. Don't wait up." After he left, Farha sat in the silence of their apartment. Something compelled her to open. His laptop, they knew each other's passwords, had never kept secrets. Until now, the email was at the top of his inbox, a confirmation for a weekend at the Amanba resort, to guests, Zaid Khalil and Daria Varma. Below it, in exchange with his business manager, Daria's father is considering a major investment. This weekend should seal the deal. And Farha doesn't need to know. She's content with her little loom and museum. Farha's hands trembled as she closed the laptop. She moved to her workroom, where 5 years of her designs filled journals and portfolios. Designs that had built Zaid's reputation while her name remained unknown. That night, as Zaid networked with investors, Farha made a decision. She packed a single suitcase, her tools, and her journals. She left behind the creations already claimed by his label, taking only what had not yet been transformed into his vision. The note she left was simple. "The pattern between us has unraveled. I'm taking back my threads." When Zaid returned 3 days later from his business trip, Farha's loom was gone. Threads cut. Farha's new apartment was smaller, single bedroom in the artistic quarter of the city, but it belonged solely to her. The morning light filtered through sheer curtains, illuminating the space she had transformed into both home and studio. Her loom dominated the living area, surrounded by baskets of silk, cotton, and wool threads organized by color and texture. 18 months had passed since she walked away from Zaid. 18 months of rebuilding, of rediscovering her voice without his influence shadowing her creations. The first 3 months had been the hardest, fielding concerned calls from mutual friends, ignoring Zaid's messages that evolved from confusion to anger to pleading. He's engaged to Daria Varma now, Tara informed her over coffee one morning. It was in the society pages yesterday. Apparently her father is financing Zaid's expansion into European markets. Farha nodded, feeling a dull ache rather than the sharp pain such news would have caused a year ago. I hope they're happy. Are you? Tara asked, studying her cousin carefully. The question gave Farha pause. Was she happy? There was a freedom in creating under her own name that she'd never experienced before. Her small collection marketed under the brand Nerd Textiles had caught the attention of several boutiques that appreciated handcrafted quality over mass production. I'm getting there, she answered honestly. Later that afternoon, Farha received an email that made her heart race. Soraya Kazemi, curator of the prestigious annual Textile Arts Exhibition, wanted to feature 3 of Farha's pieces in the upcoming showcase. Your integration of traditional techniques with contemporary applications shows remarkable innovation, the email read. The exhibition opens with a gala on April 15th. We would be honored to have you attend. Farha's fingers hovered over the keyboard as she composed her reply. The exhibition was the most significant event in the textile arts, community and opportunity to establish her name among serious collectors and critics. She accepted the invitation with trembling hands. It wasn't until she received the formal invitation a week later that she saw the complete list of featured designers. There, printed in elegant script beneath special industry recognition, was Zaid Halil's name. Of course, his meteoric rise in the fashion world made him an obvious choice. And beside his name, with guest Daria Varma Halil, sat the invitation on her workbench. Watching as it curled slightly in the humidity of the room, she could decline, send her pieces, but avoid the gala itself. No one would blame her. Her phone chimed with a text from Tara. Did you see who's being featured? At the exhibition? Will you still go? Instead of responding immediately, Farha turned to the project she'd been working on for months, a ceremonial shawl that incorporated techniques from her grandmother's village with contemporary structural elements she'd developed herself. The piece told her story threads of tradition intertwined with innovation, loss woven alongside discovery. It was the most personal work she had ever created. Yes, she finally texted back. I'll be there with my newest piece. The night before, the gala Farha worked until dawn, adding the final embellishments to her creation. The shawl draped like liquid gold when worn, the pattern shifting with movement to reveal hidden layers of detail. At certain angles, one could discern the subtle signature she had embedded in the pattern, her grandmother's name alongside her own. A lineage of artistry finally claiming its place in the world. As morning broke, Farha carefully wrapped the finished piece and placed it in a protective case. Then she opened her closet and removed the garment she had designed to complement her. Shala's simple dress in deep teal silk that would serve as the perfect canvas for her textile art. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. The number was unfamiliar, but she answered anyway. Fa, Noor? The voice was confident, professional. This is Priya Sen from Artisan Collective. I saw a preview of your work for tomorrow's exhibition. I'd like to discuss the possibility of featuring your pieces in our autumn showcase. Farha sat down, stunned. Artisan Collective was known for launching independent designers into the mainstream. I'd be very interested in that conversation, she managed to reply. After ending the call, Farha stood before the mirror, draping her creation around her shoulders. Tomorrow, she would enter a room containing both her past and potentially her future. She would face Zaid and Daria, not as the shadow behind a successful man, but as an artist in her own right. The pattern of her life had been cut and rewoven. Tomorrow would reveal the new design. Weaving anew, the preparation for the gala consumed Farha's entire day. Every detail mattered not for vanity's sake, but because this evening represented her debut as the artist she had always been but never claimed to be. She arranged her hair in a simple updo adorned with a single gold pin that had belonged to her grandmother. Her makeup was minimal, focusing attention on her creation rather than herself. As twilight approached, Farha stood before her mirror, adjusting the ceremonial shawl across her shoulders. The piece transformed her simple teal dress into something extraordinary, the intricate patterns catching light and shadow, telling stories in gold thread against indigo silk. She had named it Reclamation, though the exhibition catalog listed it simply as Untitled Number 3. "You look magnificent," Tara declared when she arrived to accompany Farha to the event. "Like yourself, only more so." The Kazemi Gallery was housed in a restored historical building. Its architecture, a blend of colonial grandeur and local artistic influences, much like the textile arts it celebrated. As their taxi approached, Farha could see the illuminated entrance, camera flashes, punctuating the evening as notable guests arrive. "Are you ready?" Dara squeezed her hand. Farha took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The exhibition space was transformed for the gala suital. Lighting highlighting the displayed works, waiters circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, ate the murmur of appreciation and critique, filling the high-ceilinged rooms. Farha moved through the crowd quietly, observing reactions to the displayed pieces, including her own. "The texture is remarkable," she overheard someone say, pausing before one of her wall hangings. "There's a depth to the work you rarely see in contemporary pieces." Pride warmed her chest as she continued through the gallery, careful to avoid the main atrium where Zaid's collection was being showcased, according to the program. His presentation would begin in 30 minutes, a curated selection from his latest collection. Celebrated for its authentic cultural elements reimagined, for modern luxury markets, elements he had learned from her, techniques she had taught him. Farha Noor, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair, approached. "I'm Soraya Kazemi. I'm so pleased you could join us tonight." "The honor is mine," Farha replied, shaking the curator's hand. "Thank you for including my work. Your pieces have generated quite a buzz," Soraya said, gesturing toward a cluster of people gathered around Farha's display. "Particularly among our more knowledgeable patrons, that level of craftsmanship speaks for itself." As they conversed, Farha noticed a stir near the entrance. Turning slightly, she saw Zaid and Daria making their entrance, surrounded immediately by admirers and photographers. Daria wore a striking red gown that Farha recognized from Zaid's pre-fall collection, the one she had watched him sketch during their final months together. "Ah, our celebrity guests have arrived," Soraya remarked, following Farha's gaze. "Remarkable how quickly Mr. Khalil has risen, though between us, his recent work lacks the soul of his earlier collections." Knowingly at Farha, "I've been in this industry long enough to recognize when a designer loses their muse." Before Farha could respond, they were joined by a slender man in an impeccably tailored suit. "Miss Noor, I'm Vikram Malhotra from Heritage Looks. Your integration of Kashmiri techniques with contemporary applications is exactly what our brand has been searching for. Would you have time to discuss a potential collaboration?" The conversation shifted to business possibilities, a showroom feature, limited edition pieces for their most valued clients, a potential residency program. As Farha engaged with genuine interest, she was aware of Zaid's voice growing louder from the atrium, his presentation beginning. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion next week," Vikram suggested, handing Farha his card. "Over lunch? Your work deserves focused attention." As he departed, Farha found herself momentarily alone, standing at the threshold between the room containing her past and the space showcasing her future. Through the doorway, she could see Zaid gesturing to a jacket displayed on a mannequin. The very jacket she had created 18 months ago, the last piece she designed before discovering his betrayal. "The integration of traditional embroidery techniques with modern silhouettes has become my signature," he was explaining to the assembled crowd. "This piece particularly exemplifies my philosophy of honoring cultural heritage while innovating." For today's market, Farha felt a hand on her arm. Tara had returned with 2 glasses of champagne. "You don't have to listen to this," she whispered. "Actually," Farha replied, accepting the glass, "I think I do." She stepped into the atrium. Positioning herself at the edge of the crowd, as Zaid continued his presentation, his gaze swept the room and landed on her. For a moment, his practiced speech faltered. Their eyes locked across the crowded space, recognition, surprise, and something like regret flashing across his face before he recovered and continued. Beside him, Daria followed his line of sight, her perfectly painted lips tightening when she spotted Farha. She whispered something in Zaid's ear, her manicured hand possessively gripping his arm. Farha remained where she was, neither advancing nor retreating. The shawl around her shoulders felt like armor, each thread a testament to her journey. She had come to reclaim not just her work, but her presence in this world they shared. The applause following. Zaid's presentation washed over her like a wave breaking against stone, acknowledged but unmoved. As the crowd dispersed to view the collection more closely, Farha turned back to her own exhibition space, where several people waited to speak with her about her work. Her name, her future. The silken confrontation, the evening progressed in a blur of introductions and conversations. Farha found herself surrounded by genuine interest in her techniques, her inspiration, her vision for future collections. Each interaction strengthened her confidence, reminding her that talent, once freed from shadow, naturally finds light. "Ms. Noor, would you mind explaining the significance of this motif?" asked an elderly woman, wearing an exquisite vintage kimono. She gestured to the intricate pattern woven into the border of reclamation. "It represents resilience," Farha explained, tracing the pattern with her fingertip. "In my grandmother's village, this symbol was woven into garments during times of change or challenge. The repetition creates strength like the way individual threads, when properly interlaced, can support extraordinary weight." The woman nodded appreciatively, beautiful and meaningful, so different from the mass-produced imitations flooding the market. As the conversation concluded, Farha noticed Soraya Kazemi approaching with a distinguished gentleman whose salt and pepper, beard, and impeccable suit marked him as someone of importance. "Ms. Noor, may I introduce Rashid Hamid? He's the director of the International Textile Preservation Society and a significant collector of contemporary fiber arts." "Your work has a voice," Rashid said after introductions were complete. "In an industry increasingly dominated by technology and mass production, such authentic handwork speaks volumes." "Thank you," Farha replied. "I believe there's room for both innovation and tradition in modern textile arts." "Indeed," he agreed. "In fact, we're organizing a traveling exhibition focusing on exactly that intersection. I'd like to include several of your pieces, if you're amenable." Before Farha could respond, a sharp laugh cut through their conversation. Daria Varmahalil stood a few feet away, glass of champagne in hand, her eyes fixed on Farha's shawl. "How quaint," she said loudly. Enough for surrounding guests to hear. "It's playing with threads and beads like a village craftsperson. It's charming in a rustic way." The conversation around them faltered. Farha felt heat rise to her cheeks but maintained her composure. "Mrs. Varmahalil," Soraya said coolly, "I wasn't aware you had an interest in textile arts beyond wearing them." Daria waved her hand dismissively. "I appreciate real fashion visionary designers like my husband who elevate cultural elements into true luxury. Not." She gestured toward Farha's shawl, folk crafts masquerading as high art. Several people shifted uncomfortably. Rashid Hamid's expression darkened, but before he could speak, Zaid appeared at Daria's side. "Darling, they're waiting for us in the main gallery," he said, clearly attempting to guide her away. His eyes met Farha's briefly, a silent apology in them that she neither accepted nor acknowledged. "One moment, Zaid," Daria insisted, turning back to Farha. "I'm simply pointing out the difference between amateur handicrafts and professional design. The difference between being a hobbyist and a true artist with vision and training. It's like the vision behind the Autumn Anthology collection," Rashid Hamid asked, his tone deceptively casual. Daria brightened. "Exactly. My husband's masterpiece. Those jackets with the geometric embroidery, revolutionary." "Interesting you should mention those specific pieces," Soraya interjected, her curator's precision evident in every word. "Mr. Hamid recently acquired several original design journals for our archives, remarkable documents showing the development of those very techniques." Farha felt the atmosphere shift. She hadn't known about any journals being acquired. "The Noor family techniques," Rashid continued, "documented across 3 generations. The last volume is particularly fascinating sketches, dated 2 years ago, showing the exact patterns that appeared in the Autumn Anthology collection, signed by Farha Noor. Silence descended on their corner of the gallery. Dadi's expression froze, her eyes darting to Zaid, who had gone pale. My grandmother taught me that a true textile artist signs their work within the pattern itself, Farha said quietly. Invisible to those who merely see the surface, but unmistakable to those who understand the language of thread and design. She turned slightly, allowing the light to catch her shawl at precisely the right angle, revealing the signature woven into the pattern, the same signature that appeared in the jackets, currently being displayed under Zaid's name. How fascinating, Soraya remarked, though her tone suggested she'd known all along.
Perhaps we should compare the techniques more closely.
Zaid stepped forward, his composure visibly strained. Farha was an early collaborator in my work. Her contribution was valuable, but uncredited, Rashid finished. A common occurrence in fashion history, unfortunately, particularly for female artisans. Daria's face had transformed from mockery to cold fury. She gripped Zaid's arm tightly enough to whiten her knuckles. We should join the others, she insisted, as they turned to leave. Daria's parting shot was aimed directly at Farha. Collaboration doesn't make you a designer, it makes you an assistant, Soraya replied, loud enough for retreating figures and surrounding guests to hear. Collaboration makes her the originator of techniques that have built someone else's reputation. The archives don't lie, Mrs. Varma Halil. Neither do the textiles themselves. As whispers spread through the gathering, Farha found herself surrounded by supportive presence, Stara at her side, Rashid and Soraya standing like sentinels of truth, and various gallery patrons whose respect was now evident in their gazes. Well, Tara whispered, that wasn't exactly subtle. Neither is theft, Rashid remarked quietly. Whether of designs or credit, Farha touched her shawl, feeling each thread that connected her to her heritage and to her future. The truth was always there, she said, woven into every piece. As the evening continued, the story spread through the gallery. Guests who had crowded around Zaid earlier now made their way to Farha's exhibition space. Viewing her work with new understanding, the very elements they had praised in his collection were now recognized in their original form, more authentic, more soulful, more true, and through it all, Farha stood tall, wrapped in her reclamation. Embroidered victory dawn broke over the city as Farha sat at her loom, fingers moving in the practiced rhythm that had become as natural as breathing. The events of the previous night played through her mind as she worked not with bitterness, but with a sense of completion, pattern finished, revealed, appreciated for what it truly was. Her phone had been buzzing since early morning. Emails from gallery owners, messages from journalists seeking interviews, invitations to speak at textile arts conferences. The truth, once revealed, had spread through the industry with the speed of thread catching fire. A knock at her door interrupted her work. Tara entered, carrying coffee and a stack of morning newspapers. You're a sensation, she announced, spreading the culture section of 3 different publications across Farha's workbench. Each featured coverage of the exhibition with prominent mentions of the dramatic revelation regarding the origins of certain techniques in Zaid Halil's collections. Halil's collections controversy, one headline proclaimed, another was more direct. Designers rise built on uncredited collaborators' work. Farha skimmed the articles, uncomfortable with being cast as a victim. This isn't how I wanted to be known, she said quietly. Read further, Tara urged, pointing to the continuation of the main article. They're not just talking about the controversy, they're talking about your work. Indeed, beyond the sensational opening paragraphs, the reviews focused on the exceptional quality of Farha's textiles, the innovation of her techniques, the depth of cultural knowledge evident in each piece. Noor brings authenticity and artistic integrity to an industry often criticized for superficial appropriation. One critic wrote, her work represents the future of ethical luxury. Farha, Tara said, taking her cousin's hands. This is recognition, not scandal. Your talent is being acknowledged on its own terms. Before Farha could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Soraya Kazemi's name. Morning, Ms. Noor, the curator began. I hope I'm not calling too early, but there have been some developments I thought you should know about immediately. I have seen the newspapers, Farha replied. This goes beyond press coverage, Soraya continued. Rashid Hamad has proposed a special exhibition focusing on the lineage of textile. Techniques featuring your work prominently as both preservation of tradition and innovation for the future. Additionally, 3 major retailers have contacted the gallery inquiring about exclusive rights to carry Nur textiles. Farha sat down, overwhelmed. That's unexpected. Not to those of us who recognize exceptional talent, Soraya replied. There's one more thing. Zaid Kel came to the gallery this morning. He's issued a formal statement acknowledging your uncredited contributions to his early collections. He's requested a meeting with you at your convenience. After ending the call, Farha returned to her loom. Running her fingers over the half-completed piece she'd been working on since Donna knew design, unconnected to anything she'd created with or for Zaid, this pattern was entirely her own vision. Inspired by the architecture of the city she now claimed as truly hers. Another text message arrived from an unfamiliar number. This is Daria. We should talk privately. Farha set the phone aside without responding. Whatever Daria wanted, damage control perhaps, or some attempt to salvage her husband's reputation, was no longer Farha's concern. Later that afternoon, as sunlight streamed through her studio windows, Farha received Vikram Malhotra from Heritage Looks. Their discussion was straightforward and respectful. He wanted her designs but understood. She would maintain creative control and proper attribution. The contract he proposed included not just financial terms, but ethical commitments regarding production methods and artisan compensation. We want to do this right, he explained. Your work represents a bridge between heritage and future. That integrity is what our clients value. After he left, Farha prepared for one final meeting. She had agreed to see Zaid not from any lingering attachment, but from a desire for proper closure. Their story deserved a final thread to complete the pattern. He arrived looking less polished than she remembered his designer suit slightly. Rumpled, dark circles beneath his eyes, suggesting sleepless nights. They sat across from each other at her small kitchen table, the loom visible in the adjacent room like a silent witness. Your work at the exhibition was extraordinary, he began. Always was, Farha nodded, accepting the compliment without comment. I've issued a formal acknowledgement of your contributions, he continued. It's not enough, I know. Nothing would be. Why did you come, Zaid? He looked down at his hands, the hands that had sketched designs but never woven them, that had claimed credit but never done the work. To apologize, and to ask if there's any way we might collaborate again properly this time. With full credit. Equal partnership. Farha studied him, seeing not the successful designer or the man who had betrayed her, but simply someone whose path had diverged from hers. There isn't, she said gently. My work has its own direction now. And Daria? He asked, a hint of bitterness in his voice. Is filed for divorce, he admitted. The family investment is being withdrawn. The European expansion is cancelled. Farha felt no satisfaction at this news only, a sense of patterns completing themselves as they inevitably must. Sorry it ended that way for you. He looked surprised at her sincerity. You've changed. I've become myself, she corrected. There's a difference. After he left, Farha returned to her loom, to the piece she had begun at dawn. Her fingers moved with certainty, weaving threads of indigo gold. In crimson, into a pattern that spoke of journey, discovery, and reclamation. She worked until twilight, when Tara arrived with dinner and news of more offers, more opportunities. They're calling you a visionary, Tara reported as they shared the meal. The authentic voice textile arts has been waiting for? Farha smiled. I'm just telling the stories I've always known. It's the language I've always spoken. Later, alone in her studio, Farha completed the day's section of her new piece. As moonlight filtered through the window, she traced the pattern she had created, complex yet harmonious, traditional yet innovative. Within the design, visible only to those who knew how to look, she had woven a new signature, her name, her grandmother's name, and a symbol representing the journey from shadow to light. Not a victim story, but an artist's evolution. Not revenge, but reclamation. Not an ending, but a beginning, woven with threads entirely her own.